This is Grizzly's Growls. It's February 14, 2007, and this is the last episode of Grizzly's Growls. Now, why, you're asking yourself, would this be the last episode? Well, it's February 14. It's Valentine's Day, and I suck at Valentine's Day. Don't have a Valentine right now. Had one years ago. Bad things happen. Good things turned out of it, but one of them meant that I ended up without a Valentine. Oh, gee. Now, what I'm trying to do here, I think one of the reasons I'm doing this way is because, quite honestly, the whole writing a script and figuring out exactly what I'm supposed to say just don't cut it for me. You know, I mean, the whole point of doing a broadcast of what I'm thinking is a little more stream of consciousness than typing everything up and going back and editing it and making sure everything sounds perfect, because I'm not perfect, you know. And people say and do what they will. I will say this, I was actually oddly enough engaged at one point. See, in 1987 it would have been, I graduated from cooking school. I had spent a number of years doing a number of things, going to school actually for an even greater number of things: computer programming, electrical technology, broadcast technology. People keep telling me I should be on the radio. Well, I went to school to be on the radio, and I failed miserably. Well, I quit miserably, but that's another agenda entirely. Anyway, there were a bunch of things I should have done and tried to do and didn't do, and ended up at the end of things saying, hey, you know, I've tried everything else. I keep ending up being a cook. Why don't I just go ahead and get a degree at being a cook? Because I keep ending up doing that anyway. I might as well get a degree in it. So I got a degree in commercial foods and restaurant management, and I'm pretty gosh darn proud of it too. So there I was, had a degree, decided right at that point to go back and try and retake the electrical technology course I'd tried earlier and failed miserably at. And during the process of going to school for that, I failed miserably once again at electrical technology and ended up being a cook. So took advantage of the fact that I knew a little bit about computers at the time. I had my own computer. Not many people did back then, back in the day. And generated a mass mailing. This was like, Lord, I don't even know. It was like late summer, early fall. And managed to get myself a job way the heck and gone up in the pointy end of northern Minnesota. Tiny little reservation. Indian reservation it was, with their own lodge, their own little hotel that they bought from the company that used to own the hotel. So I worked there for a number of months, and while I was up there, I stayed up there long enough that people got kind of used to me and they wanted me to stick around. But of course, there's no work there after the season closes down. They're thinking, well, you know, do like we do. We just go with the unemployment line. And really, I didn't actually have a problem with that, but I'm thinking, well, gee, I've got a degree now. I'm like supposed to do stuff with that. So I went off and went back to my hometown and decided to do a job hunt there. I'm thinking, you know, hey, I've got a degree now. I know how to find a job, and I did. I had a ridiculous number of people who were fascinated with the idea of hiring me. They didn't have any jobs. This was like January. Now, it's January, northern Minnesota. Picture this. Just the normal temperature, if I recall correctly, is 40 below. Not even talking wind chill, just 40 below right off the bat. That could be a little bit of an exaggeration, but it might not be. This is northern Minnesota. These things happen. And I was poking through the paper. Honestly, I don't know how the ad got there, but there was an ad in the paper for a job working at a little resort out on Key Largo, Florida. January, northern Minnesota, 40 below outside. Somebody says, we could give you a job in Key Largo, Florida in January. And I hesitated. I went off to my day job, was flipping burgers at a teensy little restaurant up close where I was working. Up close where I was living in northern Minnesota, and called them on the phone. I said, "Yeah, we'd like to hire you if you can get here, no problem." And I thought about it. I said, "Well, let me think about it, and I'll get back to you." So I walked from work back to home, walking home, 40 below weather outside. Took me about 15 minutes to walk home. And by then I just picked up the phone call and said, "Yeah, when do you want me to be there?" So I borrowed money from my family. My mom usually tend to do that whenever I have a crazy idea. Went off to Key Largo, Florida. It's a nice spot. I swear. I got to Key Largo in January, like I say. It was very cold up in northern Minnesota. And it was warm. It was warm in January, and they don't do that in Minnesota, and I was very confused. One evening, I was walking back from the staff club. They have a little bar there that's for the staff. Walking back to my little shack in the staff housing, and I was a little chilly, and I'm thinking, boy, I guess I better dig a sweater out. It's kind of chilly out tonight. Gee, I wonder what this place is like in January. Oh, wait a minute. It is January. So that was kind of freaky. Anyway, it was strange and wonderful time. And while I was down there, this is the story. Oh, God forbid. This is the story I was not going to tell y'all, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I already started. While I was down there, staff housing, I ran into a young lady, bartender there actually. She was staff for the place I was working. Margarita was her name. Gorgeous, just not gorgeous, but beautiful in a way that just is all about being young and perfect and looking exactly the way somebody ought to be when they look the way they look. That was Margarita. Now, of course, me being me, I was thoroughly shaken by being around, just stunned by the idea of being around this young woman who was, gosh, I honestly don't know how to describe her. So I started flirting, but I'm thinking, hey, this is going nowhere. This is just not happening. But I got to give it a shot. What the heck? Nothing has actually fallen off of my body. Everything still functions. Yeah, why not? So I started flirting a little bit. And she smiled, and she started flirting back a little bit, which was even weirder. For me, anyway. Perfectly normal for her, because I'm sure she had lots of guys flirting with her. Anyway, that went on for a very long time, and I became sorely attached to the whole idea of having her around and flirting with her. And after a while, I figured out that basically she was already with somebody else. She was with some younger fella. That was a little weird for me. Still is weird for me, actually. I just never quite figured that one out. Obviously attracted to me. Wonderful fellow that I am, but already with somebody else. Not exactly how that all worked out. I don't know if it ever did. I actually don't know what she ever thought. So anyway, the time came, and basically where we were working was all seasonal. You worked down there for the winter, and when summer came, you found someplace to work for the summer, where it was normally cold in the winter, so you go there in the summer and do the seasonal work there, and come back to the winter, you go back down to Florida. And, Maggie had set up a thing where she was going up north for the winter, and I made arrangements to go there myself. I was supposed to meet her up there. We were going to be working in different buildings about a mile and a half apart. And, but we'll figure something out. And then when the time came, she left. She went off to the place we were both supposed to go. And when the time came and I was supposed to leave, I didn't have any money. I was broke. And I didn't know what to do about that, so I signed on to stay back down in Florida where we were. And she went off to where we were both supposed to be going. And I'd write her letters. The only address I had for her was her home address where her folks lived and her sisters lived. And I'd write her letters. And keep thinking that somewhere along the line I'd catch up with her eventually, somehow. Anyway, I actually spent the entire summer working in Florida. Believe me, you do not want to work in Florida in the summer unless you grew up there, because it's pretty bloody awful. Too hot doesn't even begin to describe Florida in the summer, especially in August. So I was there for the whole summer. I got out of there and I figured, well, gee, I pretty much screwed the pooch with Maggie. So I went home. I went back to Minnesota, went back to my northern job, my winter job. Well, my summer job. Anyway, fall job. I went up there. Tried to forget about it. And, while I was up there, I got a little letter in the mail. Nothing big. From one of Maggie's sisters. She had a number of them. Found out why I hadn't heard from Maggie in so long. Turned out while I had been going through the stretch where I hadn't been hearing from her, she'd been traveling around, hadn't been where we were supposed to have ended up anyway. Went down south to visit a friend of hers. Got into a car accident. She and her sister. Maggie's sister actually died in the accident. And Maggie ended up in a coma. I'm getting this in a letter out of left field, essentially, from Maggie's sister, who I've never talked to. Yeah, we've been getting these letters in with your name on them, and you must be somebody that cares about Maggie, and I'm sure it's something you want to know about, so let me tell you. And then she told me. I got a number, and it was the number. Maggie had been in a coma for a couple of weeks, and then after that, she was down south, like I said. She got flown up to her folks in Michigan, where she could be at a local hospital and they could stop in and see her. And I called her. The number I had was actually to get her in the hospital. I called her. That was very weird. Because I'm talking to her. And strangely enough, with all the business in Florida and whatnot, that was the first time we actually really got to talk. And I did a few mixtapes, basically, of music that I was a big fan of. I loved. Send them off to her in the mail. Wrote a bunch of letters, sent them off to her in the mail. I guess she went back eventually and read all the letters that I've been mailing to her folks' house during the time she was off doing something completely different. And one evening, Maggie and I were chatting, and foolishly, I says, there was something I was going to ask you, and now that you're hurt, I probably shouldn't. Really bad. And she says, go ahead and ask. And I asked her if she'd marry me, and she said yes. And I was pleased and bemused and flabbergasted and confused, and I didn't know what to make of all that. Now, naturally, of course, once you become engaged to somebody, you're supposed to be where they are. And I was in northern Minnesota, and she was in Michigan. So I ended up borrowing money from my family, my mom mostly. Getting on the Greyhound bus, packing up all my stuff, leaving behind the job that I'd had. Going to Michigan. Supposed to be going for just a week or two, maybe. Seeing Maggie in the hospital. Bunch of things happened while Maggie was in the hospital. I learned that when I said I was willing to devote the rest of my life to somebody else, I really meant it. I learned that when you have a closed head injury from a car accident, that it makes very sincere changes in your ability to function. I learned that I wasn't really in a position at that point to support somebody who had a closed head injury from a car accident. And I learned that I was going to make the choice to not be with somebody if somebody else could take better care of them, namely Maggie's parents, who apparently were lovely people. So I did the best I could to explain that to Maggie, and I left. She went with her parents back to Detroit, where she'd grown up and where they lived. And I stayed where I was, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And that's the way that turned out. I stayed in Michigan, hoping that someday she'd get her poop in a group and say, oh, gee, I wonder whatever happened to Dave. Call me. I was there for 13 years. I think it was some significantly smaller fraction of that I spent actually believing that might happen. You know, you do what you do. Haven't seen her since. I'm tempted to hire like a private detective to find out whatever happened to her. Hopefully she's fine and taken care of. Maybe better, I don't know. And that's how I spent my Valentine's Day. Remembering when. And this might well be the lost episode, as I said, because, well, who wants to hear all this crap anyway? Somebody once said that every story is a tragedy. Certainly every love story is a tragedy, because at the end, quite literally, everybody dies. And this is just another tragedy in the long west, and who the hell cares? So this will be the lost episode. If I feel ambitious enough about it, I might post it, leave it up for a while, and finally let it go. At least the episode anyway. I don't know about Maggie, but at least the episode. And that's all I have to say about that. Talk at you later. But hey, you know, still got the number, 206-339-GRIZ. Still got the website, of course, the old Libsyn thing, grizzly.libsyn.com. If you got any other comments or questions or commiserations or horror stories or whatever. Well, not horror stories. Nobody wants any more horror in their life. life. Everybody's got plenty of things. You got any stories to tell? This is where we tell them. I'll catch you later.